don't waste time trying to figure it out when there's so many people out there that can help you develop a plan that's fit for purpose for you, and you can just use it to get ahead.
Welcome back, everybody. We are joined today by Erik Scott. Erik is a mindset coach and the founder of Energized Dad. Erik, welcome. We're so excited to have you here today.
Happy to be here. So thankful.
So we'd love to learn a little bit about your background, where you came from, the sort of the story of what made you who you are today, if you want to start off with that.
Yeah, certainly. I grew up in Southern California as a kid. My dad was a machinist. My mom was an emergency care nurse and was in the beauty industry, but we were always outdoors. We were hiking. My dad taught us to snow ski at a very early age. I raced BMX bikes. I grew up playing soccer. So, it wasn't stay home and watch TV kind of thing, right? The TV was available, but it was more about get out, learn about life and just explore life, So yeah, growing up in Southern California, that was, a blessing in disguise to be able to get outdoors all the time in the great weather. And then eventually I moved to Texas and became more involved in fitness and training in different fitness modalities from, your everyday gym to CrossFit and strength and conditioning facilities, doing rucking events with Go Ruck. I've been training jiu-jitsu the past 12 years with the focus on self-defense. So I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu right now. And I just enjoy being active and, focused on, self-development, self-improvement the whole time, right? And a lot of it for me is just about daily discipline because, it's not every day that you want to go do any of this, right? But I think once you have that level of discipline in place, you're going to go do the work, regardless of how you feel, unless you're just like really injured, right? That's a different story. But yeah, I think growing up in Southern California was a good baseline for me to get me where I'm at today. And, studying computers and networking technologies, and now I'm a systems engineer. I design supercomputers to solve the world's biggest challenging engineering problems and scientific difficulty scenarios. But, that's really process driven. So I think all of this has just been a culmination of learning more all the time. How can I apply my knowledge and also give back?
That's awesome. You said a lot of things there that really resonated with me. And I want to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit and ask, you said the TV was there, but that wasn't your thing. Or, you spend more time outside. What do you think's changed between now and then? Because I think that's not the norm anymore.
Yeah, we have a 1-year-old daughter right now, right? And, it's kind of like, it's so easy to turn the TV on to get the kids to be maybe just focused on something else for a while so you don't have to do much. But that, I would say back then and now it's, the relevance of technology is just everywhere, smartphones, iPads and so forth. But it's more about maybe just the background of parenting and just understanding, you got to get out, you got to do stuff, you got to explore. We just came back from Spain and Norway with our daughter, and she wasn't even 1 year old, so she's already got her passport, got passport stamps, and can probably share that in not even kindergarten quite yet, right? So it's like, you got to get out, you got to go places with your family.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like it's up to the parents to enforce this or like find things that will. Well, it's different for a 1-year-old, right? My kids are 8 and 5, so they love the TV. But yeah, finding activities, keeping them active is pretty important. At least I
Yeah, and
think so.
you got to find time to do it, right? Because we all get so caught up in careers and just everyday life, and it's not the old adage that everyone has the same 24 hours. Well, just people use it differently, right? And sometimes even now I just wake up an hour earlier than everybody else so I could do my own self work, right?
So you mentioned that you have to go places and experience things. So I'm curious if there are any particular places that you've been or experiences that you've had that you can kind of point to and say, yeah, this was a somewhat defining moment. This helped shape my view of things.
Yeah, I think when I moved to Texas from Southern California, I had a 1970 Nova and I just drove it across the country and, just picked up and moved, right? I had family in Texas. So I said, I'm just going to do this. And at the time, Southern California in general was having economic issues. So I needed to make a move. And I would say making a move is good for you because you have to go with the uncertainty of not knowing everything, right? And, once you do that and then you figure it out, you're going to understand, well, I can create this ecosystem that works for me just about anywhere I move. I moved from Texas to Florida and then I moved back. And it's about, you don't need to have the perfect house, the perfect neighborhood. You just need to have your ecosystem set up that works for you, whether or not you're single or you have a family. And, what I've just been able to do is develop what I would call an environment that works for my way of life. And I would say that's my biggest takeaway there is, don't be afraid to take risk.
Yeah, it sounds like your system engineering hat is on in this regard, and you're applying it to your life.
That's very possible, right? Because, even growing up as my dad as a machinist, I would take things apart just to see how they work. Not really able to get these, pieces of whether it was a drill or a saw or anything like that back together. I think my dad had to, unfortunately, do that. But it's this process, right? And, you don't necessarily have it all figured out. It's the 80-20 rule, where if you can get 80% of something figured out, you're good to go, right? And don't, the biggest thing is don't wait to start. One thing you can't recover is time. You can recover money, you recover a house, you can recover a car, you recover all the, touchable items, right? But time is not an infinite resource.
Right. It's one of the few limited resources that we realistically have. And so you got to use it the best way that you can.
I think that's a really cool segue into talking about some of the things that you've been up to lately and what are some really cool milestones that you've accomplished, and can you talk about some things that you're proud to have worked on?
Yeah, certainly. Other than designing supercomputers to solve the world's most challenging problems over the past 20 years, I would say, the biggest challenge I've worked through was probably a back injury, right? From my years of fitness and jujitsu, 2016 through 2021, all into 2022. I had some very humiliating back pain. It was hard to sleep. It was hard to move around. And, in the early days of fitness, you're taught a recovery is just a rest day. But you're not really told much more than that, right? Take it easy. Maybe you don't do exercise today, but you're not taught about foam rolling, bands, stretching, that type of stuff. And sometimes as men, we're hesitant to go to the doctor, right? To get stuff checked out, right? And there are times where it just makes sense. There are times when, you just need to work through something, right? You can't run to the doctor for everything. But after years and years of just trying to recover, working with chiropractors, working with massage therapists, dry needling, everything that's possible under the sun, throwing every supplement that's possible is out there for joint mobility and inflammation. I worked with a chiropractor that asked me, what do you know about stem cells? Have you looked at stem cells before? I said, nothing. I don't know anything about stem cells. He says, well, look, I'm providing you a short-term fix. Like, you need to get a longer-term plan in place, right? Meanwhile, I'm losing sleep. The quality of life is going down. It's impacting my career. It's, impacting my relationships, and, things aren't getting better. And I don't want to let up on fitness. I'm working around these injuries in fitness. So I said, I have to dive into this. So I went down a pretty deep path. And again, like you're referencing, I probably took the systems engineering approach to understand what's going on with my back. And that took a good amount of time to figure out.
How did it resolve?
Well, a bit more context. And when it comes to medical professionals, I always try to work with someone that has a background in some sort of fitness, right? Athletics, maybe military and so forth. So I was training at a strength and conditioning place, and some of the folks were going to a wellness center outside of Austin, Texas, that did stem cell treatment. And what I liked about the facility is the person running it was a former Green Beret, an 18 Delta medic. So I had a background in, medical knowledge that isn't your everyday scenario. So we went and talked, and one of the things that we did was an MRI, and I had 3 compressed discs, 3 herniated discs. I had canal stenosis, which is your vertebrae start seizing together, and then the lower half of my back was degenerative bone disease. So that explains 5 years of pain, right? And I seeked out regenerative medicine on purpose because I didn't want surgery, right? And I just didn't want to be opened up. The back is so sensitive. And there was no really good course of action that I knew of, right? So I like the idea that stem cells repaired tissue, repaired cartilage, enhanced bone fragmentation, and repaired, just every element of an injury. So I seek that out. And I started looking at stem cell clinics globally because you can't get good quality in the United States. It's just not fully approved by the FDA. And I worked with BioAccelerator in Medellin, Colombia, and they focused on backs. There's the Stem Cell Institute in Panama, but they didn't really focus on backs at this time. This was late 2021, early 2022 timeframe. So I worked with BioAccelerator to develop a plan for my back, and I just decided, why not do my knees, my elbow, and my shoulder while I'm at it, because of all the fitness that I've been involved in jiu-jitsu and the impact. And I had MRI proof that my knees needed help. I was bone on bone. My elbow and my shoulder needed help, torn cartilage, tissues, and so forth. But my back was the major problem. And in April of 22, I went and did the procedure. I ended up with 13 total injections, 9 in my back, and the rest were for my knees, my elbow, and my shoulder. And, it was a wonderful experience. You're actually at a real clinic with top knowledgeable sports medicine doctors, orthopedic surgeons, and you're not treated like a number, right? You're treated as someone who's got a real problem. There's a real cure. There's a known process. And I spent 5 days there. So if you say, out of that takeaway for context, 1 year later, we did a follow-up MRI, and I had fluid back in the compressed discs and in the herniated disc. The compressed discs were no longer visible. The herniated disc had fluid. The canal stenosis was gone, and all I had left was inflammation. So that's the power of regenerative medicine, right? And I couldn't have got that here in the U.S. But I was faced with a lot of pushback from family, friends, U.S. medical professionals, and there's no proof that this works, is what I was told, right? And you're going to Colombia, that sounds dangerous, right? But to sit in my shoes for 5 years of back pain, I knew I needed to do something. So I took the systems engineering approach. Let me make sure I'm confident with my own research, my own data, I reviewed the stem cell treatment plan in Columbia with the Wellness Center in Austin, and they said, this looks good, go do it. So yeah, that's kind of the big takeaway there.
Yeah, it sounded like there's not a ton of alternatives for you here. And so it's like it kind of forced your hand, even if it was uncomfortable. It's no different from moving to a new city and having to figure out your environment, right? Like you're just doing that again, but it's a little bit further. And I imagine all of the prep you did moving from California to Texas and Texas to Florida gets you comfortable being uncomfortable in a new place.
Right. Absolutely.
Is there anything that you can point to from your sort of pre-treatment fitness routine that indicates why you suffered from these problems, and has it caused you to make a change to prevent them coming back as you continue your fitness endeavors post treatment?
Yes, certainly. I've throughout the years have had back pain due to weightlifting. It could have been improper techniques, to be quite honest, or quite honestly too much weight. But in 2016 through 2019 timeframe, when I moved to Florida, I really stepped up the pace with rucking, doing endurance events and CrossFit type activities, and it just really added a lot of pressure to my system. And in addition to continuing training jiu-jitsu, and I think that was the gray line that I crossed, right, where it just began to be too much.
Got it. So yeah, just overworking.
Absolutely.
How have you tried to modulate that now? So post-treatment, have you gotten a more sustainable training schedule?
Yeah, and throughout the process, Jason, I learned quite a bit about recovery, working with physical therapists, right? Proper stretching, use of resistance bands, foam rolling when needed. I learned quite a bit about yoga, but there's other maintenance needed on the body, that I've learned about. And I've, working with physical therapists, I've developed routines that I can do on my own, whether it's, here at home in the office real quick, or before or after a gym session. And it's that. And then also, you can't beat the hands-on work that a massage therapist or a chiropractor does. So I add that into the mix. Now I still go around the corner and I work at a sports medicine center where they do hands-on work. And, coincidentally, they work with NFL players. So I got NFL players sitting all around me on benches, the same bench I'm on, they're next to me, right? And it's interesting because, while their injuries might be a bit different, it's still the applicable process that physical therapy provides, right? And I hear it from the players too. There's some players they'll come in and there'll be another guy on the bench, and the guy on the floor goes, "I don't want to be here today." And the guy on the bench goes, "This is when you need to be here. When you don't want to show up, this is exactly when you need to be here. This is why we're professionals, right?" And, that just happens every day to all of us, right? To hear, folks at the NFL level say that, it's just, we're all human, right? So it's the continued maintenance that I've learned that is the bigger course correction here. And I've adjusted my training now to where I'm training for longevity. So I have a 1-year-old daughter now. And so it's jiu-jitsu 2 to 3 classes a week, and just a gym routine where it's maybe 3 days a week or so.
Yeah, I'm curious what made you choose jiu-jitsu. Why did you think about adding that to the mix?
It was a fight. I got in a fight. I was sucker punched, and I had a guy come up behind me, didn't really want to face off, and I just wasn't in a position to correctly understand how to defend myself, right? Fitness alone, that helps you build muscles, but it doesn't help you defend yourself, right? If you don't know how to, properly defend yourself in a street altercation, it doesn't matter how good you are at anything else, right? So I think it was that. And just learning self-defense, it also has taught me just how to stay out of stupid situations. You go to a place with your family or your friends or whatever, and there's 5 guys with 3 pitchers of beer at a table. Don't sit at the table next to them. Go pick
Right.
another table, right? Keep yourself out of probable scenarios and go from there. But other than that, jiu-jitsu teaches you self-discipline. It teaches you how to respect other people. It teaches you other values where it's courtesy, understanding, common nutritional, benefits and just being sensible in general, right? So it's just been a value added journey.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Anthony, I know that self-defense is a sort of big thing for you, both for yourself and for your family as we kind of move forward. Erik, would you recommend jiu-jitsu just generally to people as a practice they should pick up so that they can learn those types of skills?
I think so, because it helps you understand pressure scenarios, what it is to be on the ground, with somebody else, but also self-defense. It's critical to think about self-defense because there is sport and competition jiu-jitsu, right, that focuses on tournaments, right? That's not self-defense. So you've got to, just kind of scope out the different academies and what they're teaching and, make sure it's fit for purpose for, what your takeaway is. And it's great for kids too, right? The anti-bullying aspect of it, because schools are so full of that right now. But the more you know how to defend yourself, the less you want to stay out of situations,
So let's look ahead a little bit here. We got from the bio about you that we know you're a founder of a business now. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. Energized Dad. So if I take the 28 years of different fitness modalities, 12 years of jiu-jitsu, my stem cell recovery plans and success, knowledge of physical therapy and all of that, like my goal right now is to help dads all over the world be the best version of themselves, right? Maybe you're just overworked. There's so much weight on your shoulder and you can't, you don't have time to focus on you, or you don't even know where to start. That's where I come in, or potentially maybe you're already in some sort of physical fitness activity and you're just not seeing results. I could help out there, but it's really about mindset development, nutrition, macro-based plans, followed up with a fitness plan, right? And then I work one-to-one with all of these folks on my platform. But the thing is, you don't need to feel stuck, right? And, you don't have to be in a situation where you got to figure it out on your own. And, my goal is to teach people life value knowledge that they could take away and use going forward, right? And not necessarily, just be relying on the program. Leverage the program to learn about nutrition, to learn about mindset, to learn about setting aside time for you. If you're the foundation of the family, you got to wake up an hour early, right? If you're waking up just early enough to get everything moving and, you speed through the day and you get home, you keep speeding until it's time to go to sleep, where's the time for you, right? Maybe you can take time at lunch to, do some fitness classes, and the more you know about nutrition, proper amount of protein, proper amount of fats, proper amount of carbs to fuel your daily activities, that passes down to your family too, right? And friends. So, my thing is, let's build the best version of you, and then you present that person to the world.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. We need this.
I appreciate it.
What advice could you give to someone who is sort of in that position where they're going all the time and don't have enough time or they don't feel like they have enough time for themselves? What advice can you give those people to just find a place to start?
You need a daily routine. You need a process that you can rely on. Wake up early, do the self-work, right? And, prepare ahead. Prepare for the night before for the early morning, right? Maybe you can go do a fitness class early morning, or you go run early morning. You've got a house, full of people, family. You don't want to wake, set your fitness and your shoes aside, your clothing to where that's all there. Go set your coffee up to where, either it auto starts or you push a button when you wake up, right? Prepare for the following day, the night ahead, right? And also have a plan that you can follow, because when you need to make adjustments in life, scenarios pop up. Like sometimes, I'm with my daughter all morning, and, my wife, the routine changes. It's easy to make a switch and move the checkers around on the checkerboard. But when you don't have a plan, you just think it all's out of sync, and then everything goes bad. Well, you also need to be able to learn from when things go bad. And, one other thing I would say, and this isn't a pitch for Energized Dad or anything, but don't waste time trying to figure it out when there's so many people out there that can help you develop a plan that's fit for purpose for you, and you can just use it to get ahead, right? I see it all the time with friends I have in the fitness industry. They're like, well, I'm going to go develop a nutrition plan on my own. It's like, okay, well, I could help you get that done like really fast. Well, yeah, but I just think if I clean my act up, everything's going to work out. Well, okay, but your plan got you where you are now. How are you going to develop a plan to get out of that? You're not, right? I mean, face it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have trouble investing in themselves. They'll spend money to comfort themselves in the short term, but you think about what about the long term? And so, like you were talking about, it'll take you a fraction of the time to come up with a nutrition plan for somebody because you've done it a bunch of times. And then someone else doing it on their own, they have to do the research, and they might not even get started because they get halfway through and decide they don't want to do all the research. So I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. I've been doing that a lot lately, and so this is the personal development world makes a ton of sense to me, and I think you're here for the same exact reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jason was just saying, Anthony, what about when people are stuck? They don't know which way to turn. If you can't develop a good plan that you're going to stick with on your own, and it's going to drive success and create impactful, evidence in your life where other people go, wow, what have you changed? You look different. You seem different, Well, it takes maybe 3 months to get those, that type of impact, right? And I see it now too. I might go see a friend I haven't seen in a while, and they're like, what are you doing? You're different. Well, health and fitness has really good ROI, right? It's short-term and long-term. And it's just about applying what you know. And if you don't know enough, go get help, right? So you can get stuck with listening to all these podcasts, reading all these self-help books, and if you don't apply it, or you don't know how to apply it and hold yourself accountable, you need someone that's going to do that for you.
Right. Think about those NFL guys, right? They don't want to be on the bench, and they need that professional to say, hey, you need to be here for you. That's the help.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing physical therapy, working on my own back, and I've got high level NFL players all around me, and one of them's like, I don't want to be here. This sucks, And then the other guy said, no, you need to be here, And it happens to all of us, right? There's mornings I go to the gym, and I'm like, this is a terrible idea. And I'm like, well, that's good that you realize that. Just get the work done. Maybe don't be here for 60 minutes. You're here for 35 minutes, and maybe you're not using the barbell. You go do cables, or you go do something else, right? You still do the work, And that's a nice thing about having a plan is maybe you don't go in the front door all the time. You use the garage door or the back door, right? You adjust the plan accordingly, right? But if you're just winging it, you have no plan. And as engineers, right? How are you going to go get funding for an engineering program if you have no plan? You're not. It's you're going to get sent back to the drawing board. The executives are going to say, no, we don't understand totally what you're trying to do and then how this is going to add value.
Oh, speaking of plans, do you have any plans for your own future, both personally and professionally? And how can we and our listeners potentially help you achieve your goals?
Yeah, it's just going to be focused on Energized Dad and the coaching aspect and helping people. And as my daughter's growing up, letting her get more involved in physical activity. I tell you what, when me and my wife are sitting around doing, activity in the house that is physical fitness related, she's already getting all excited, so she's going to be like side by side, working this. But, I'm putting, everything I do on Instagram, my daily routine, my life, my macros, my fitness plans, and then the daily discipline that I talk about is all there. So, and, not too long ago, I went and hired a coach, mid last year, because I fell off course with everything I know. Right. And I displayed all of that. So all of that is out there. Right. And I course corrected my own self. So always try to level up and just improve yourself. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, it'll be neat to follow you along and just see what's going on and how we can apply it. The piece I'm thinking about now is you have a 1-year-old, right? Like how are you gonna do you already have some ideas for how you're gonna pull her into this lifestyle?
Yeah, I do push-ups every morning. She's usually right there. I've got her, I even just posted a video yesterday where I'm doing push-ups and she's all excited moving around, and it's going out on walks and, going to the jungle gym area. We're going to go snow skiing pretty soon. And, it's just outdoor activities. And, we also feed our daughter as good as we can in terms of food, a whole foods diet. So, real turkey, real green beans and rice and pasta and all that. So I have fun, posting about that and, talking about, just, I don't only want to put good food in my body, but, I want to make sure, the whole family gets it right. It's not just reserved for me. And even for school, we pack her own food. We make her own food every day.
That's awesome. That'll go a long way, for sure.
Yeah, nutrition is huge.
One of the most I have when you were talking about doing push-ups, I have a fond memory of both my kids when they were very young doing burpees with me, and they're like, "Hey, I want to do some," and I'm like, "Here, let me show you." And it was a disaster, but it was just very adorable to watch.
Oh yeah, kids get energized by their parents, right? Oh, hey, you're doing this. Well, let me figure out how I can, do something similar. So it's that positive influence that's so important.
Absolutely.
Anthony, any final questions?
I've got lots of questions, but they'll derail us. So let's stop here, and I just want to thank you for sharing everything that you have with us today. Definitely going to follow up in this side thread, and I want to keep in touch. This was awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Anthony and Jason. This has been great.
Yeah, Eric, thank you so much. We will include some links to your social media in the show notes. We encourage people to go and follow you and, just get all the information they can out of you, because you sound like a great resource for, for fitness and just general health. So thank you again for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.